So I thought we'd start maybe with Allison because one of the things that Mark Davis did almost immediately was start working on a show called the Western River Expedition, which was a replacement for the Pirates. And yet Walt hadn't even seen the Pirates at that time, had he?
No, and I don't think he saw very much of the river either. The Western River.
No, I don't think so either. What was the idea that Mark had? Was it we're bringing the West to the East?
Well, he thought that the Western River ride would go into California. And he thought the Pirates were going to go into Florida. And then the Pirates were going to be, it was to be a walkthrough. And I think Walt, after being in New York and going through a walking park to go to the different shows with Mark and the one who was head of the group in Florida.
Joe Carter?
I mean, New York. Can't think of his name, but anyway, he went with Mark. The three of them walked through. And there were some very funny episodes that happened when they were walking through. Walt went past the place where they had a lot of makeup and such. There were a lot of teenagers. And they saw Walt and they started screaming and surrounded him and wanted his autograph and that. He said, "Look, I'm just here for seeing the park like you." And he said, "If I start signing autographs for you, everybody will come in here and squash us all." So he said, "Later." And the little one went out and said, "He touched me! He touched me!" And it cleared the place and they took off real quick. But he was going to have a walkthrough. And after walking through the New York World's Fair, he said, I think we ought to have him ride through. He said, if you're walking in the park all day and you go out for a ride and you have to walk through it, he said, it's too much. You have to go for a ride. So Mark changed from the walkthrough. It was to be a man sitting on the back of a chair and telling you a story about the pirates, and then there was a screaming would light up and it would be people acting out like the pirates were doing. And then go to the next, and that was too much too. So Mark said that wouldn't work because it would take too much time. So it had to be changed. But Mark was very good at staging everything and making you look at what you were supposed to see, not what you wanted to see, but what he wanted you to see to enjoy the ride better. So
it's kind of interesting that so many of those things started out in walkthroughs. The Edison Square, which became the Carousel of Progress, and then even Liberty Street, which became eventually the Hall of Presidents.
right.
That was quite an undertaking to transition from Lincoln to the Hall of Presidents, and I know you were involved in that with your dad, right?
Right. Yeah, it's really an interesting story behind that because the web people, I'll call it web at this point because that's what it was when I was there, rather than Imagineering, but they gave him the problem of how are we going to be able to project an image that's 200 feet wide. We're going to have all of the presidents on the stage, and this was basically what Walt wanted to do in the beginning with the Hall of Presidents. New York World Fair, you couldn't sell that whole thing. It was just too large and too expensive, so it was Lincoln. So the transition from Lincoln when we went to the Florida project was that it could become a Hall of Presidents and could do what Walt wanted to do. So anyway, my dad is presented with this problem of this huge diorama that is going to tell significant points in American history, particularly around Lincoln's time. And we decided that we couldn't do that live action. That's going to be way too expensive. So we're going to do it with large paintings. And they brought from England a number of scenic painters. They had quite a crew of them painting all of these different series of backgrounds. And they painted them on panels that were proportional to the screen size. It was probably 25 feet high, and the screens themselves 25 feet high by 200 feet long, so you have this long, narrow strip. So that's the way the painting was done in one huge painting. Now the problem was, we don't want to just show slides on the screen and have them so static. We've got to be able to move the camera toward them and pan around and move so that there's motion taking place over these slides. So I was in charge of the shop at the time, and he came to me and said, well, we're going to build a camera stand. We're going to mount one camera on it, and we're going to basically break this up into 5 cameras and 5 projectors. We'll take 5 projectors to put out this huge big picture. So we'll use one camera, and we'll dolly in, and then we'll move over, and then we'll do some crabbing with the camera, and then we started to do that. We started to build him a stand to do it. One morning he came in and says, not going to work, not going to work. Forget it. We're going to build another camera now. So this camera became very revolutionary. It took 35 millimeter film, like conventional motion picture film, but turned it on its side, and the film is transported horizontally. So we made an aperture in the camera that represented the same as that entire screen. Very long, just as wide as we could make it between the perforations. So this film would advance and stop, and then they would take a picture of that. That was one frame, so it was done stop motion like animation. And then they moved to the next one and the next one. So he would be able to pan this camera in and move it around, and everything was on one strip of film. Next step, take it to a printer and extract off separately 5 sections into 5 separate films. And that allowed us to print those up to 70 millimeter and then project the 5 projectors to put it all back on the screen. And it came out just a sharp attack and no movement. I mean, it was extraordinary in terms of cameras, because film jitter is something that can happen quite easily. You think you're pulling this very long strip, and it just worked like a champ.
You know, some of these paintings were, like Herb Ryman's, were about this size, and they blew up to on the full screen, so you could see every line.
Yeah.
It was really amazing. And one of those artists, I can't remember his name at the moment, but one day he came in and said, I have to leave work early today. And he didn't explain why, but that night we were watching the Academy Awards, and he gets up on stage and he won the Academy Award for costume design for Tom. He had to take the afternoon off so he could get in his tux and go to the Academy Awards. True story. Bob, one of the big challenges was, you know, we always talked about the monorail being the first monorail in the Western Hemisphere, where it's here at Disneyland. But all of a sudden, we had a real transportation issue at Walt Disney World. How did you deal with that?
Well, as soon as we learned that Walt had bought a little piece of jungle, like 44,000, what, 46,000 acres?
No, 28,000.
20, well, it's still an awful lot of jungle out there, which all the distances were
Twice as big as Manhattan Island.
yeah, all the distances were going to be very, very big. And if you remember our original Mark I monorail, that just sort of ran around in Tomorrowland. And of course, 2 years later, we expanded it so the monorail actually did something like take people over to the Disneyland Hotel, where there was a monorail bar in the afternoon. But we had developed the Mark I, the Mark II, and I was working on the Mark III monorail at that time, which was going to come out in 1968. And in the middle of that project was Florida. What are we going to do in Florida? It became very obvious that we're going to have a much bigger train, so very rapidly the structural engineers came up with the concept of a much longer beam, roughly like a 90-foot length beam, and which allowed the beam to be much wider, as well as being longer, which meant I could take the basic Mark III engineering that we'd worked several years on, and we're already in production, and simply widen it and then lengthen it. So we have a much longer, wider car without having to really invent any new suspension or anything. But because it was Florida, and they said it gets about 180 degrees in the afternoon. So, well, we're going to have to enclose it. Well, that meant the car was going to be a lot heavier, which meant we were now going to have to go to a much lighter weight type of structure, which I went to an aluminum honeycomb type structure. And then we could do the air conditioning, carry all the people, because quite obviously Dick Dunas was in charge of operations and how we're going to move people. We're going to have to move a heck of a lot of people by various means. The monorail sort of grew automatically in kind of a follow-on design, piggybacked onto the Mark III that we were working for at that time. What we didn't know was that we were going to build 4, 5, or 6 trains, and after a while, up to 10 trains, and then pretty soon they said, oh, we're going to build an dock, which meant, oh, we're going to have more beams and more trains, and now just recently, as you read on the internet, we have another monorail down there, which is going to be peach colored. Now, I don't know what peach looks like on a monorail, but that's, monorail just keeps on expanding.
Well, it's because it works, right?
What do you mean sometimes?
I didn't say but that's probably an engineering problem. I didn't say design. I think I should have changed this. So Kim, you know, the shows were just not taken literally and from Disneyland and put it in Walt Disney World. You worked on some changes, didn't you?
I did. When I first started my career at WED, I started at the model shop very early in 1970, and the place was just crazy with getting ready to open Walt Disney World. We still had a lot of shows to finish. And the model shop was like the heartbeat of WED. We painted, we sculpted, we carved wood, we carved styrofoam. It was just where everybody worked, and the art directors worked right along with us. They were, you know, Mark Davis was down, you know, art directing the Small World show and telling us stories about all the analysis, travels to the exotic places. And Roldy Crump was making us lunch on his hibachi and his Indian tent-covered studio. And we had so much fun because we did change things. We didn't just copy. And Mark did a fabulous job with Small World at kind of putting a little tiny bit of a different style on it instead of a lot of the paper mache. We did some fiberglass animals with really beautiful paintings on them that went with every country. And I think Crump's take on the Tiki Room was a lot of fun because he did a little bit of a different carving and things with the different perches and you know, a lot of the birds. We did a little bit of a different color scheme. And we had Joyce Carlson was directing a lot of the work with us, and she was kind of the mother of the girls. I started with lots of young upstarts like me, Tony Baxter and Maggie Elliott and Skip Lang. A lot of the people that are still with us at WDI today were starting just like me, and of course we were thrown in with the likes of Harriet Burns and Fred Jurger and some really astounding people that just taught us so much about their craft and kind of the tribal knowledge that a